Has this been you? You're getting ready for your disc golf tournament. You've got all these thoughts going through your mind. You're feeling really, really good. You're expecting to walk out with a W, and then the tournament happens. You don't stick to your plan. You don't score what you wanted. You definitely didn't get the W. In today's episode of the Chain Clankers Disc Golf podcast, we are going to be talking about expectations versus reality when it comes to disc golf tournaments. This episode is unlike any before that we have done. Horatio and myself are two COVID disc golfers who found a love and a passion for this game and are constantly trying to grow and improve our skills. This episode, we are going to be doing two parts. One part, the beginning of the show, where we discuss our expectations for our upcoming disc golf tournament. What do we think is going to happen? How do we expect to score? What are some goals that we have for ourselves, and what is a game plan that we can stick to? In the second half of this episode, we are going to be discussing the reality of our disc golf tournament. What did we actually score? Where did we actually finish? Were we happy? Did we meet our goals? And how can we better our expectations to our reality? I think this is very important for every disc golfer to do, because you can go in with a mindset, but if you don't stick to that mindset, if you don't stick to that game plan, you're never going to find the success that you're hoping for. If you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening to the show and leave a like rating if you're watching on YouTube. We highly appreciate all the ratings and reviews on Spotify. We've got some giveaways that we're trying to do, but we need your guys' help. First, when we hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, we're going to do a giveaway. When we hit 100 reviews on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we're going to do a giveaway. So make sure you're doing your part in helping us out by hitting the subscribe button, hitting like, and leaving a rating and review. We've got new podcasts dropping every Monday, as well as we have a new YouTube video every single Wednesday. You're going to want to make sure you stay tuned for those. I want to leave you with a question before we get into the episode. In the comment section or on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, wherever it is, I want you to answer, what are your expectations for your next tournament? And after that tournament is over, come back to this episode and reply to your comment and let us know if you met your expectations. But let's jump into the episode about expectations versus reality when it comes to disc golf tournaments and how you can achieve more of your expectations right now. All right, everyone, let's get into the meat and potatoes of today's show. Horatio, let's just start off here, man. How are we doing? How's it been? What's disc golf like for you right now?
It's good. I've actually been getting out and playing a little bit more consistently now that weather's good. This week, not so much, which is kind of disappointing because I'll actually be playing my first tournament of the season this weekend, which is kind of what we're going to talk about this episode. But, I mean, there's some new stuff that's just kind of clicked for me this season that I'm really excited about. My sidearm, I don't know if you guys watched on our Instagram, but my sidearm's just feeling good. Just figured out kind of a way to do it to where it's really easy and really accurate, and it's given me, motivation to throw more sidearms and shots. And then putter, just learned a few more things. That's helping me making more putts. That's one thing. When me and you would go out and play, I'd be able to keep up with you a little bit, on drives and stuff like that. But then on putters, you would just walk away with it normally. So putting's just kind of been a huge hurdle for me. But I've been able to just watch some more tutorials and just a little more practice and getting back in the groove, been able to find that. So game's just it's been feeling a lot better than it was at the end of the season. A few months ago, I was just like super, I don't know, just disappointed in the game, and it's just coming off season. I hadn't really played much, and it just felt like it was not fun. But yeah.
Yeah, so pretty much what's going on is this episode's going to be special. You've probably already heard about it in the intro, but we're recording two parts to this episode. So the first part of this episode is going to be us kind of game planning, talking about our upcoming tournament, how we're feeling. And then the second part of the episode is going to be us discussing, did we stick to the game plan? What were the results of the tournament? What went well? What didn't go so well? So I think this is going to be a very unique episode, and you're going to be able to hear in pretty much real time for you, full circle of how to create a game plan. Did you stick to it? If yes, what happened to you? If no, then what what was the impact of that? Because I really think, in just some discussions that I've been having, is that having a game plan for your tournaments, for your rounds, is super duper critical, because it allows things to just be so simple, so free flowing. If you're walking up to a hole and you're like, hey, I always throw my onyx on this hole, I wanted to do this, you don't even have to think about it. You just know you're going to whip that disc out, and that's what you're going to throw. So, Horatio, let's start with you, right? So I've already competed in 2 tournaments so far this year. This is going to be my 3rd tournament. This is, I believe, your first tournament in well over a year. How are you feeling nerve-wise going into this thing?
A little bit nervous. I don't have a whole lot of expectations. Definitely for the first tournament of the year. Um, it's like the hardest course that we have in town, and it's not just a regular 18. It's 20 holes, if I'm correct.
20, I think 2022. I think it's
22
22
holes. So,
holes.
it's the toughest course and then extra holes. I don't know. I'm just a little bit, I guess I'm excited, just kind of see what I can do. I'm not definitely not gonna lie. One of the reasons I'm doing the tournament is because the raffle. They're raffling away like a grip bag, a rangefinder, a basket, and something else. I was like, yeah, if even if I win one of those things, that makes it kind of worth it. I know me and you definitely have different opinions on tournaments. I don't have a PDGA number yet. You have one. You've this is your 3rd tournament of the season, and we'll talk a little bit about that more. Uh, for me, I'm not looking to go pro. I'm not looking to make, I'm just looking to play and improve. But for me, tournaments, I have a hard time. This one was $53 to play, 2 rounds. I could go do that on a given weekend for free. So the raffles kind of gave it a little bit of extra incentive, to get out there. Um, but yeah, that's kind of my thoughts, going into this tournament, a little bit all over the place.
I feel that. Like I said, this is my 3rd tournament of this season, 3rd opportunity to impact the rating. And I think something that is different for me now that I have a rating is the first round at my 2nd tournament, I shot below my rating for the entire first round and 2nd round, I guess, of the first tournament of the year. And so it was only by a couple points, but I was like, this sucks. Now my rating's going to go down, blah, 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 blah. So I really think a big goal is just literally not caring about your rating. If you have one, I think when you kind of let those thoughts get into your mind of, oh, well, if I shoot poorly, then this is going to impact my rating. Like, I think initially, once you start thinking negative things, bad vibes, as the kids are saying nowadays, it only is going to lead to more bad vibes and bad throws and things like that. Something that I'm not going to do this time is I'm not checking scores until lunchtime. There were 2 times during the first round of my last tournament that I checked scores and immediately took a bogey or worse on that hole that I checked scores on. So I'm not going to look at scores. I'm not going to look at scores going, during round 2. I'm just going to let it go. I'm going to keep my own score. And something that I highly recommend to everyone, I understand that one person has to keep score for the whole card. Maybe a second person has to, but honestly, I'm going to keep my own score every single time on my own UDisc and watch, because there have been multiple times where, when not doing that, something might not be completely correct scorecard wise, and it's you don't figure it out until it's too late and you can't change it. So like, I've noticed in both of my tournaments there have been discrepancies between what I had, which was correct, versus the person keeping score. And that's not a knock on anyone keeping score, that's a lot of responsibility and all that stuff. I'm just saying, I think it's best if, honestly, everyone in your card, if one person keeps the score for the whole card and then everyone keeps their own individual scorecard, I think that's really good, because then there's just more comparison, more transparency, and you'll be able to ensure you have the right scores. So I know that doesn't happen to everyone, and it could just be a coincidence, but that's something that I know I like to do. I also like to have it so that way I can look back on UDisc, see how I did, and I can also then, kind of reflect and grow from that. But going into my 3rd tournament here this year, I think something that's a big focus for me this time is to play boring disc golf, especially because this is the most wooded course that we have here in our area. So a lot of these holes you have an opportunity to hit an early tree, which could cause you to get a bogey pretty quickly. So I think the goal going into this is just to play smart, simple golf. Maybe that means taking myself off of the intended lie by 20 feet to go to a more open part of the course, and maybe I'm not in the perfect position, but I have a less likelihood of hitting an early tree and allowing my second shot to be easier to get to the pin. I think that's going to be super duper important. Playing boring golf is going to lead to you having higher success. I think most of the time getting a par is really going to feel like a birdie because a lot of the field might be taking a 4 or maybe they take a 3, but I really think the big goal is to not try to go for the superhero shot, not be like, this would be cool if this hits. I think playing safe, doing the okay shot. If you have to lay up to get a bogey instead of running something to maybe save your par, but if you miss, you could get a double bogey. I think there's going to be a lot more concessions in my game for sure.
That's easy to say, play boring golf, play for the par, play boring golf. We hear that all the time. What specifically does that mean to you? Because, we're playing both an intermediate level. So, we're not, the best yet at picking lines and hitting those lines, at, approach shots and hitting the approach shots. We're still not that consistent to whereas we're in intermediate. We're a little bit more consistent than Rex, so which is why we moved up. So playing boring golf, what does that mean to you? Because now you can say, oh, I'm just going to play for par. Everybody can say they're going to play boring golf and play for par, and you can go out there and hit all the trees. So what are you saying when you're saying you're going to play boring golf? What does that look like tomorrow, the day that you're playing?
Yeah, so for me, I know I'm someone who, when I play in tournaments where I get a little bit jittery, I tend to yank my shots to the right a little bit more. So maybe that means I need to tilt my line a little bit more to the left in order to make up for that, or just try to get rid of those nerves. But so I think a great example kind of goes back to my last tournament on hole 3 at Park City. If you're in the area where I was at, is I pretty much had a 40-foot uphill putt, but the likelihood that you miss or you hit the cage or whatever, the disc is going to roll down the hill, could go out of bounds, or you could have this exact same putt again. I think that if I wasn't playing boring golf, if I was just full sins every time, I think I absolutely run that putt with the intent of it going in. And sometimes when I do that in tournaments, I juice it a little too far. So maybe it goes over and rolls down the hill, or, the next thing, now I'm looking at a 20-footer that's downhill. And if I miss that, then it's going all the way to the bottom of the hill or out of bounds. So for me in that instance, what I decided to do was I gave it a pretty halfway bid, and it just landed like a foot or two in front of the basket, nice and safe, and I could get a tap in par. So for me, what I think that is not always running the basket when I have the opportunity to do so. So let's look at upshots, right? You always want to have your upshot as close to the basket as possible. And I think something that I've definitely done in the past that is a mistake is aiming for the basket. I think instead I need to pick a spot on the ground and aim for that and let the disc work toward the basket and be okay coming up a little bit short. Because I don't know if this is just a me thing or maybe other people yourself have this kind of stigmatism too. Like I almost feel like if I'm approaching and I come up short, it's like, that was a bad approach because I didn't get to the basket. You know what I'm saying? Almost like it was too weak to get there, and I don't really like that feeling. But instead, I need to go back to the tips that I've given on the show of having that landing zone. If my landing zone is 10 feet, then it's okay if I'm 10 feet short, then it's the same thing as being 10 feet long. So I think that I'm trying to pick a spot and hit that spot and let the disc work its way towards the basket and just being smarter about my throws. I think understanding some of my discs a little bit better. So, I know my justice, if I put that on a straight hyzer, I have to aim, and I'm doing a forehand, I have to aim more left than I think, because if I baby it, it's going to go left a lot faster because it doesn't have as much speed. Or, maybe I want it to kind of go a little bit straighter. I know I have to put a lot more anhyzer on it for it to do that. So it's those things of, I think, actually fully thinking through your shot, fully deciding where you want the disc to land before it lands instead of just getting up there and like rushing yourself, trying to go too fast, trying to go too hard. I think having a touch game is very important to having that kind of boring golf mentality and just walking away with those pars, because my goal is to get everything within inside of 5 feet so I don't even have to worry about the par putt. You know, if you've got that 20, 30-foot par putt, I think that's when the nerves really start to hit and the thoughts of, well, if I miss this, I'm getting a bogey, and those thoughts are bad. So for me, it's almost being more touchy and understanding that coming up short is okay, but you don't want to be, obviously too short to where now it's bad. But I think that's kind of, at least for me, what I'm thinking of.
That was, that's a lot, for listeners. So it sounds like, just being more effective and more conscious with your shots, being more specific, being purposeful, not just running every single approach shot. Kind of that's what it sounds like. I think for me, same, like, playing boring golf, especially like this course, and not being unrealistic and thinking that I have to part everything, or I would like to part everything, but, especially this course and, my level, I'm going to get bogeys. I'm gonna there's going to be bogeys on my scorecard, but it's going to be not getting those nasty, fives or sixes, those ones that just totally kill you, you know, and being okay, with fours, when you hit those early trees, because us both are going to have holes tomorrow where we hit the early trees or where we get into bad spots. Like that is a fact. Like that will happen. And just making it to where you happen, either where you save the par, or you're like, okay, I'm not going to par this hole. I need to make it, to where I get that four and accept it. If you're on your second shot and it still looks pretty tough, and instead of, still being aggressive and being like, I have to save this for a three, and being like, okay, I probably am going to take a bogey, but I need to take a four instead of, a five or six. So doing something silly, doing something dumb, and being like, all right, I just need to baby the disc up there to where, I can walk away and just, finish this hole. Because there's definitely some holes that are a lot tougher than others, especially if you end up in certain situations. And so, I think I'll be going to mids a lot, and understable stuff a lot, just because, how we've talked about mids versus a distance driver, the flight path is a lot wider. So in these wooded courses, you don't have as much space to go left to right. A mid, you're able to put it as fast, and if you can control it, it doesn't travel left to right or right to left as much. If I'm throwing a Mako 3, that's something pretty understable, pretty straight, versus, a nuke on a hole because I want to get all the way out to the left. That nuke is going to need a ton of room from side to side, and that brings in a lot more trees, a lot more branches into play. So, sticking to those mids and, those understable fairway drivers where I can get them to hyzer flip and keep that flight line as thin as possible and try to avoid as many trees as possible. I think that's one thing that I'll try definitely tomorrow. But it's wooded, but there's still going to be wind, so still have to take that into consideration.
Yeah, for sure. So something I want to ask you then, what are like, I don't know, like overarching goals for yourself? What would define this tournament as a success for you?
I like I said, I don't have a PDGA, so I don't have a rating. So if I could just come out and shoot 1,000 rated, I'd be down for the season. I wouldn't play another tournament, and then my rating would just be 1,000. I would just take a screenshot, that would just be my profile picture, and I'd be done. I'd be 1,000 rated player. No, but seriously, I do want to enjoy it. Like I said, I really don't like paying money to play tournaments. I get why people do it. They want to compete. They want to see how they do against other people. I really don't like doing it. So I already paid. I'm gonna do it. So I want to enjoy the tournament. I don't want to get upset, because I'm playing bad or have these like super high expectations, and then just be pissed off by the end of the day because I played so poorly, because that defeats the purpose. That even, it makes me more upset about paying money to have a bad time. So I want to, hopefully end up on a card with cool guys, able to have a fun round. And I play the best when I'm in that semi-competitive, casual, fun round environment. which is why I like league so much, because people go out there for that little bit of competitiveness, but people are out there just for fun. So I really thrive in that environment. Hopefully people are out there also to have fun and not super serious, which it's a lot of local guys, so I'm guessing it will be. But yeah, my main goal is just to have fun, meet new people, and just play the disc golf that I know I can. The one where we all know those rounds where you're playing, you're like, okay, this is fun. I know I can play like this, and it's more enjoyable when I play like this. When you're hitting your lines, making your putts, that's fun. Compared to the other times where you're just missing everything, you're missing putts, and you're like, I'm better at this, and you're getting upset. So ideally, it would be awesome. I think if I can finish in the top 10, I don't know what it will be. I could have played in rec probably and been fine, but I was like, I'll just, me and you are like not too far. I still am not quite to the point, to where I'm just outright beating you. You definitely are able to get more practice, and you putt practice a lot more than me. And you're playing intermediate,
Yeah,
so
my putt stinks right now.
but we're pretty close. You were playing intermediate because you do have a rating. So I was like, I might as well. And then there's a chance, we end up on a card. Um, and then that's another thing I don't like about tournaments is the scores and, the results. Sometimes, you'll finish in second or whatever in a certain division, and you would have finished, I don't know, like 10th in the other division if you had played up or down or whatever. Like, they're not consistent. You have so many people that don't play in the correct divisions, whether, on purpose or they just played amazing disc golf, whatever the fact is. It'd be cool to end up in that top 10, but I don't know how accurate that top 10 is going to be. Your tournament you played last weekend, the guy that took first place the first round, he shot 1,000 rated round, and he beat like majority of the players in advanced, and he would have been like fifth or sixth in open, and he took first in intermediate, and second place was similar kind of also. So just stuff like that. But if I can, end up in, I think top 10 is kind of my goal. I think that'd be a really good round for me.
Yeah, the projected payout cash is ninth. There's 20 people in the division, so if you can get P9 or above, you cash.
Do you get actual cash though? Like,
So no, it's in
mm,
merch. So like last week I cashed. I got like $20, $21, whatever it was. So I just was able to use it on a disc that was there. So it's one of those things where for me, I think my goal is to cash. I think my goal is to always cash at events. I think that allows myself to be competitive, to work on things, and it's one of those things where I have a job to get done and I can get it done. And honestly, what's really funny, and I might have to do this to you, is the first round at that last tournament was not good, obviously. And then Trenton, who you guys have seen on Instagram and the YouTube videos and those things, eventually we'll get him on the podcast. He was playing in that event also. He had like 4 or 5 strokes on me, and we went into the second round and we said, let's put a sixer on it. Whoever wins this round gets a six-pack. I don't know what happens to my mental game, but when a six-pack is on the line, I just become a monster. And we ended up tied at P11 at the end of the day and both cashed. And so yeah, that I don't know what it is, man. So maybe I just have to bet everyone on my card a six-pack, and I might shoot 1,000 rated.
yeah, 1,000 rated tomorrow at that course would be pretty impressive. I think that's what the even like some of the pros aren't going to be shooting that. But that's pretty much what I have. We're going to keep this a little bit shorter today just because we have that part two, and then so we'll come back. We'll talk about kind of what we talked about. So just to finish up, I'm going to be sticking to those mids, trying to have fun, trying to stay relaxed, um, not super, trying not to get too aggressive, just because stuff can go bad pretty fast. So, when we part two, we'll see what I did and how it went. And I'm probably going to either be laughing or
I I think you'll be okay. I think we'll both be okay. At the end of the day, I think it's going to be a very competitive field. I think it's going to be a good time. I like going out to tournaments a lot more than you do. I like that competitive side, and I don't know, it's just a little bit more competitive to me than league night
I like
is.
I like tournaments. I just don't like paying
You got to
$60.
get a PDGA number,
It's
and then it won't be as expensive.
I didn't get charged one for this. They didn't
They
charge
didn't
one.
charge
It
you
was
one for
still,
this?
no, they weren't charging it.
Oh, and it still cost.
But
Oh,
even then that saves you $10. They're still like
I
$50.
mean, depending on the tournament you
I
play. Maybe
Yeah,
we should
but I
just.
like
Yeah.
tournaments. Like they're fun, but
I
$50?
mean,
Like up to this one, you'll be at about 150. This is your third tournament.
I don't even want to calculate it. I signed up for the Arrowhead experience. That was like $115. I don't want to talk about it. But I've got
That's different.
at the end of the day, I will get my money back and more in the PDGA membership, so it's been worth it for me. And like for me, what my goal is to be able to play. I want to play all the local tournaments. I want to play the local tour and really at the end of the day be able to evaluate myself against peers within the community, and it's more fun than having to drive, because I think not having to drive the 2 hours to Manhattan or the hour and a half to Emporia, those things, like sure, eventually maybe once or twice a year do I want to do that, maybe once a year do I want to go out to the farm or whatever, sure, but like when I can drive 20 minutes to a local course and be able to still get that tournament feel in, like that's good to me, since we're so blessed of having so many courses and having a good enough group that we're able to have a local tour and all that. So I really think my goal is to be able to play in the local tour, and like I said, just kind of see where I stand. And I really do think that every tournament I do find myself getting a little bit better. And something real quick, I know we're not going to spend a whole lot of time in this segment, but the first year that you and I did tournaments, we literally walked away from every single tournament being pissed at disc golf, being pissed at each other, being pissed at how we played, all those things, and it just simply wasn't any fun. And honestly, I have not had that feeling in a very long time, just because I think that mental game has improved so much that I'm able to enjoy it a lot more, and B, just playing a little bit better and being competitive and doing all those things and putting the work in. So I really think for me, every tournament I go to, I get a little bit better. I can learn from something. I know what I need to work on, all of those things. So again, like I said, my big goals here are play well, have fun, cash, and hopefully we're on the same card. Hopefully we're both on lead card. Wouldn't that be something?
That'd be cool, but maybe not, because I feel like I always play worst when we're on the same card. Something about that competitive and wanting to beat you.
That is true. I feel like every time we do play together, I have a bad round, like in a tournament. So that'll be awkward. Maybe not. Who knows? All right, guys, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we will see you after the tournament. All right, there you have it. That's the first part of this episode, the expectations. We're now going to be getting into the reality. Were we able to achieve our goals? And if yes, what were the final outcomes? So we're going to be talking about that here in just a second, but I did want to take 1 minute to remind you, please make sure you're hitting that subscribe button and leaving a like rating if you're watching on YouTube. Leaving those ratings and reviews on Spotify and Apple Podcasts help us out a ton. You have no idea how much it helps us out. It lets us know which content to continue going with, what we should be adding, and how we can continue to transform. We have new podcasts dropping every single Monday, and we have new YouTube videos dropping every single Wednesday. You're going to want to make sure you stay tuned for that. We've had some awesome disc reviews, a bag review, and we have got some fun rounds planned and challenges coming up, as well as short, quick tips. So you're going to want to make sure you hit that subscribe button right now if you're not already subscribed to us over on YouTube, as well as, hey, if you're looking to improve your putting, get your next disc, upgrade your disc golf bag, or have a snack while you're out on the course, check out our sponsors in the description of this podcast. You support the Chain Clankers by supporting our sponsors. Let's get to part 2 of this episode. Okay, now we're back after that short break. The tournament has happened. Horatio, give me your initial thoughts without giving too much away. How are we feeling? It's been a couple days since the tournament has wrapped up. We've had time to process our emotions. How are we feeling?
For my first tournament of the season and walking away with the W, I couldn't be more happy. It's what I would be saying if I
wouldn't have hit all them damn trees.
Trash. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. I mean, overall, I would say it was a relatively windy day, but we were playing in the woods. So when you were at least in the woods, your only obstacles were really the trees, not so much the wind. But dude, there were a couple holes. Once you got outside of the woods, that wind was brutal. It was so tough out there sometimes.
Yeah, it was definitely a tough tournament just with that combination. Usually you have kind of no wind in the woods. You get out and there's not much wind. You get to really open up and rip it. For those that people that like really power shots and distance. It was tough because you couldn't really do that because there was one hole that was wide open into a headwind, and a guy threw. It was something overstable, and everybody just like second guessed their like disc choice and put what they had in their hand back in the bag and pulled something else. I pulled out my destroyer, and that like stood up and faded, and yeah, it was tough out there.
Yeah, so it kind of brings up the first thing I want to talk about before we get into results is I want to bring up the topic again of should the person who did the best on the previous hole have to go first or last? Because again, I think that they should have to go last. I think they should get the privilege of going last. They get all the wind reads so they can update what discs they want to throw. They can see how the wind impacts everyone else. Yeah, you don't get to control the tempo, but like I think there's more knowledge that you can gain by going last than by going first. I don't know. What were your thoughts? If you let's say you got a birdie, everyone else, did one stroke worse. So, birdie, or you got the birdie, par, bogey, double bogey. Would you rather be going first or would you rather be going last?
I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of times, play for fun or whatever. And I do get to go first. And then, during tournaments and stuff, I like go in the middle or towards the end. I think that the way it's set up, I think that there is like a confidence boost, kind of like like a confidence thing of going first. So I think it kind of feels good, to have the box. That means you're playing the best on the card, you're hitting the shots, and it gives you kind of that little extra pressure you need to really execute, because you have to go first. So I think I don't know. I think going first is fine.
My counter to that is, though, if the standard was going last, I feel like you'd just have the same confidence if you were going last. You know what I'm saying? You're like, oh, sweet, I get to watch everyone else go, and then I'll go. Like, if that was the standard and, things were inversed, I feel like you could just apply that argument to that. And, like, my thing is, I agree. In the tournament, in the moment, all that stuff, it's awesome to go first. You control the pace, you control the box, all those things. You don't have to wait on everyone else. But I will say going last does give you a bigger advantage if you're paying attention. If you're going last and you're choosing to be pouty and not pay attention, then yeah, it doesn't matter. But if you're actively watching those in front of you, you see somebody pull out a destroyer, or let's say something a little less in speed. Let's say like a Leopard 3, right? Or a Getaway, or a Onyx, or Undertaker, something like that, right? An FD. If someone pulls something like that out and it just flips into the ground because of the headwind, yeah, you're probably going to disc up. And now you know that, and you didn't have to make that mistake in the tournament. So for me, I think it would be more advantageous if you were going last and you're paying attention to see what happens to the other folk instead of you have to go first. And if, let's say, all of a sudden a headwind rips in at the last second, you get kind of punished almost.
Yeah, and I guess, the only thing I would say against that is, I guess it's like a reward to go first, but also it's like you got the birdie. So you're the best player on the card at that hole, and so you should have more knowledge, and you're the better player because you have the box. So you should have a better idea at reading the wind, choosing the disc, and so the worst players, or the ones not doing as good, they're going to be lower on the card, going last. So going last, I guess, helps them, because they're able to see the better players go first, and that little bit, if they are paying attention, they're able to fix that and, change their game, seeing the better players, and so it kind of helps them out.
Yeah, I can understand that. So I guess another question for you then is like, I wasn't on your card at all, so I don't know how many times you controlled the box or how many times you went last, but anytime that you weren't controlling the box and you were able to watch somebody else throw, how many times would you say you changed what you were going to do after watching the person in front of you?
Just that one hole, where it was that crazy headwind and the guy's disc just kind of turned over, and I didn't really change my disc. I just put a bunch more of hyzer on it. Because it was my most overstable disc I had, so it was what I was going to throw anyway. I just put a lot. I changed the angle that I released it on.
Gotcha. Okay, well, I guess let's talk a little bit about the tournament then and how it went, and we can kind of break it down. So let's start off with MPO. I feel like they at least deserve a shout out. Shout out to Jordan Schaefer with a 7 down. He ended up winning the tournament. Fan favorite of the podcast, Nolan Ramser, who we have had on before, just barely lost at 6 down. He had a 7 down second round. Pretty awesome. Cody Deal also in MPO. He finished at tied for 5th with 3 down, so congratulations to him. But, awesome for those guys. But taking a look a little bit at our own scores in intermediate, David Feltz took home the W with a +8, so shout out to you, David. Played pretty well. Myself, I came in 6th at a +14, tied for 6th with our boy Seth Gonzalez. Shout out Seth. And then you came in 13th at +22. So let's kind of break that down from a fundamental standpoint. So talk to me about your first round. What went well? What didn't go so well?
First round, I think there's a lot of that tournament jitters, trying to figure out. My putter wasn't really on. I did a warm up before the tournament, but I think that confidence in my putter just wasn't there, and I was missing putts, and I was playing pretty safe, But that first round, I ended up +13 at the end of round 1, and it was a 22-hole course, so it wasn't just regular 18. So 13 plus on the first round, just not a. I made a couple. There was like two major, probably, dumb mistakes, I would say. But the rest of it was just, tough holes, playing in the woods, and just not being able to make putts. But I think for the, I didn't play rec, I played intermediate. I think that was fine because the people on my card, we were all about even. And then, a lot of our shots, some people had better drives, some people had really good putts. Yeah, but round 1 was okay, +13, not the greatest, but also it wasn't halfway through, it didn't feel that bad besides those big mistakes. What about you?
I mean, I know I told you this that day, and it still holds true. I had at least 5 times where I was inside of 10 feet and I hit the chains, like my disc was completely in the chains, and just the way it bounced off, it hit the edge of the cage and just fell out. Either the wind blew it out or it just fell out on the other side, and then I have a tap in, and there were so many bogeys taken from that. Literally that's 5 strokes. That's the difference between being in tied for 6 and being in second outright, literally right there. And so that's something that's just very frustrating. The night before, I pretty much reinvented my putt, which you might be like, you're an idiot for doing that, but I knew what I was doing was not going to work, and I had to at least try to put myself in that pressure situation and just commit to what I was doing, because here's the thing, right? You can be like, I need to change this part of my game, but the most important time to practice that is when the pressure's on in the tournament, right? Like, I can do 3,000 putts in my backyard, but the most important reps are going to come in the tournament. So to me, I was like, okay, I'm trying this new form out. I'm trying a new arm swing. I need to just commit to it. Even if it's not working for me, I need to commit to it. And that's what I'm going to do for this tournament. And for the most part, I'd say I did. The second round, when I was inside 10 feet, I didn't do that. And I just would putt how I used to. And I just barely would get it in, not trying to do too much there. And so really that first round, and the last couple turns for me, my first round has just been significantly worse than my second round. I mean, I'm talking like 30, 40 point rating difference between the 2 rounds. And so it's one of those things where I need to figure out how I can have a complete tournament, because the first tournament I played in this year, it was the opposite. The first round was really good. The second round was really bad. So how can I get 2 good solid rounds of disc golf in? That's kind of the big question right now. And really, at the end of the day, I think it comes down to putting a lot. Yes, I can be better with my drives. Yes, I can be better with my upshots. But especially being in that wooded course, overall, I think I'd be pretty happy. With my first round, there were a couple of, I got 3 birdies. There were opportunities to get more, but there definitely was if I'm 40 feet out, I'm not necessarily running this to make this. I'm running this to, if I get lucky and it goes in, that's great. If I miss, it's going to be 5 feet away and I don't have to worry about it. I think my confidence was lacking a little bit on the green, just especially going to a new putting style. And so it really was one of those things where I'm not making an excuse in any way. I think it was good. If we played again this weekend, I'd do the exact same thing. It's just one of those things where I know what I have to clean up, and it's just a matter of being able to clean that up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. One thing that really sticks out now is part of my game plan was to play smart, play for the par, and just get those pars and, play safe. And definitely on my putting, in the green, I was putting that way. And I was putting very safe. I was like putting to make it, especially circle 2. And then, between, circle 2 and circle 1, putting to make it, but not necessarily giving it everything and, really pushing that putter in there because I didn't want to go long. If I missed, I wanted to be right by the basket. And so a lot of times what happened, I would be short or it would chain out because, my first round, I didn't have any birdies at all. It was fun because, I was getting a lot of pars, but also, a lot of probably of my single bogeys that I got came from those putts that, I didn't really commit to and, just completely go for. And I think second round, I definitely had more of that mentality because, I was already plus 13. I didn't really have much to lose. After first round, I was in
ninth.
I think I was
or
in
no, sorry,
ninth.
you were in 14th. I was in ninth. You were in 14th.
I think I was closer than that,
Nah,
maybe.
I just looked. You were definitely
Yeah.
14th.
And so my goal, for the tournament was to finish in top 10. And second round, I was like, you know what, I'm already plus 13. Like, I just have to give it more. And so my putts second round were definitely a lot more confident. Just committed to them, and just definitely gave them more oomph. And it showed. Second round, I got birdies. My first hole started with a par. Second hole, I parked it for a birdie. And then it was from there on, I was pretty solid. I was playing pretty good. And then, fast forward all the way to, it was 22 hole course. Fast forward to hole 18th. And I hadn't looked at scores the entire time, at second round. I hadn't looked at scores. I didn't know. And hole 18th, I was sitting at +2 through 18, which for that course, that's really, really good. And I was hyped about it. My game was good. I was making putts. I was actually getting birdies. And that's when we kind of went into that open part of the course. Like the only 2 big holes that play as par 4s with headwinds, that's where those were. And I just had 4 holes to finish up. And in those last 4 holes, I took an OB and then a double bogey. And then, that just killed my round.
Where'd you go OB? Did you go OB on Colwich E7? The one where you used to be able to cross the bridge, but now you have to walk all the way around? You went OB on that one?
No, it's the one. It's the first one when you come out and it's open, and the basket's way back on the
And to
little
the
hill.
left. Yeah. It's that one. Okay,
So,
okay.
yeah.
So you went in that little creek over there.
So my first shot, I got it way out there, kind of just right of those trees. I got it out there kind of in the fairway. And then my second shot, I was still probably 250 from the basket or so, about halfway probably. And I took a Nuke SS and ripped it, and I just crushed it, and it stood up because of the wind. And I went past the basket, and I went past the creek, and I went OB.
Wow. That's a long way to go OB. That's tough. That sucks. Yeah, second round for me, like it obviously was significantly better. I went from shooting a plus 11 to a plus 3. And I know earlier in the episode I talked about I'm not going to check scores. The only time that I checked scores was at intermission, as well as with my very last putt. I was like, do I need to make this? And I saw it and was like, yeah, I kind of do need to make this to get fifth. It would have been a tie for fifth, I think. But I was at a 20-footer with a ripping headwind, and I was like, dude, I don't know. And I was just so timid that it was like, if I miss, whatever, I get sixth, but I'm not going to miss. That's going to put me in seventh, eighth, ninth. And so I didn't take it the best bid at it and kind of left myself with a little bit of work for my bogey, because that's normally a par 4, and I got it in 4. I was putting for 3. And overall, I mean, I didn't start off too hot in my second round. I think I started 1 or 2 over on the first 3 holes, and then the rest of the round, I just absolutely killed it. And I would say this was a little bit weird for me. I really didn't talk at all both rounds. The first round I was doing really well, and then they kind of started to talk about scores while we were in a backup, and I said I don't want to know my score, and then somebody said what my score was, and then after that I went from like +1 to like +10 after that point, and I was like, a freaking course, dude. I literally did not want to know that, and whatever. And not that big of a deal. I still control my own destiny. And then, yeah, the second round I didn't really look at scores at all, and it was going really well. I had a 150-foot throw in, so that was really cool. And yeah, I would say the second round I definitely executed the game plan, even when things got off to a little bit of a rocky start in the beginning, and I was like, wow, I'm kind of sucking right now. You know, like one hole that I got a birdie on, I took a bogey on because I hit a tree early this time from the exact same tee instead of nailing the wide open gap. And so very frustrating to start, but then I just kind of calmed down. I got a birdie on a really difficult hole, and that just kind of got me going from there. And, you know, being able to kind of set the pace, set the tempo, it was really nice. I got a couple of good breaks and didn't have any of those chain outs. So overall, I would say very good. I know what I need to work on. You know, I know the putt has to get there. I know the drives and upshots for the most part aren't that bad. I know that they can at least somewhat keep me in contention, but something that I was telling you that day was I've hit 1 circle 2 putt in 3 tournaments. I probably put up at least 15, and I've hit 1. That's not like me, 6 months ago. I was nailing those, and I feel as though my problem lately has been I've been going past the basket, not hitting anything, going over and past the basket, and the next thing you know, I'm left with a 25 footer, and once those start to, didn't go down like they were, it was like, oh, I need to be more timid and more safe on these, so I'm not always going for that same run like I used to be. And I've had a couple where it looked good the whole way and then just barely hit the cage at the end. It's like, a freaking course. So, that's kind of something that hasn't been going my way yet, which I think it will go my way. Hopefully, the more time that I get in with it, the new, feeling good about the putting form and all that stuff. I think some of those circle 2 putts will fall. I don't think it's normal for me to go 1 of 15. I'd like to think I'd at least go 3 of 15 or something like that. So I think that's kind of the big thing for me to focus on at this point.
Main takeaways is game plan. I'm trying to remember what I think I wanted to stick to, mids, slower discs, and just play safe. I think take away from the full tournament. I think I did do that. There were some times where I did get greedy, but for the most part, I feel like I did stick to my game plan, play safe. Finished at I don't know 13th or 14th place. Not super great. First tournament of the year, so there's a little bit of that, and it was a 22 hole, whatever. But just for my own, for as much as I play, and I'd like to think, that I'm better than that. So I'm a little frustrated with my score, finishing position. Just because there's a lot of stuff, that I think I could have improved on, and so. Does that make me want to play more or less tournaments? I don't know. Going away, I was like, I could have done better. There's stuff I could improve on. That makes me want to play more tournaments. But then there's also, just paid this much, to basically see how not good I am yet. And so that kind of makes me not want to play more tournaments. It's like, And so, we'll see. I think maybe a couple more tournaments this season, but I'm not sure. But, I think that's mainly kind of my takeaways. What about you?
Yeah, I get that. I'd say my takeaways are I really feel as though I did stick to the game plan for the most part. I did end up cashing, which is what my goal was, so very happy with that. Almost got a top 5 finish, which I would have been even more happy about. I understand the thought process of, I don't want to just throw money away at tournaments, but I feel as though my goal has kind of been to play the local tour here, and I've been able to go to 3 of the 4 stops so far. I've signed up for the next 2. Like, I think I'm committed to this local tour. Maybe I won't go out of town for anything else this year, but like my thing is that I now that I have a rating, and it matters a little bit more, I guess, because of that rating. I mean, ratings don't really matter, but like it's one of those things. It's cool to look at, I guess, and like it makes me want to keep playing, and seeing myself improve and get better is important. And like I think that it's one of those things where I can, over this is now the 3rd year of playing in tournaments, I can see the drastic improvement. If I would have played that tournament 2 years ago, I'd have been in the plus 50s or something like that, right? So I think the more tournaments that I play, the better, and the better that I'm going to get. So for me, I think tournaments add value to my game because it forces me to be in pressure situations, and it forces me to have to get better, and I can check my reality. I can check how good at disc golf I really am when it really matters.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think you talked about that afterwards also, and like I said, like, don't get me wrong, I love tournaments. I love the environment. There was a couple people on my card, who said, they were talking. It was towards the end, and one of them had an hour drive, and the other one had an hour and a half drive. And we're like, golly, like, where are you doing this tournament? He's like, there's just not many out by where I live, and I don't have friends or people that I can play with. So tournaments are kind of the only time where I can play with other people. I can't get my significant other out there or whatnot. And for me, that's not the case. I have you. My wife go out there with me. I have buddies, friends who go out there with me. I play league night. I don't have a shortage, of opportunities to go out and play with other people. So tournaments, I don't really have that need. So it's awesome. I love tournaments. It's super sweet. For tournament directors, it's a lot of work and the time they put in to set these tournaments up so people can compete in these. But one thing I did notice is, that weekend, we had the tournament going on, and it was 100 to 110 people, but they were also running a league that weekend, and I think it was a PDJ-rated league, but that thing was packed. It was one of the biggest showings that they had to the season so far, so you don't have to do tournaments, to go out and play with other people and stuff. You can't go out. There are still leagues, and some of the people that played leagues are really good, and they would have done really good in those tournaments, but they didn't do that, but so it's awesome, for some people and not for everybody, but I do think, definitely you need to somehow put yourself in those situations, whether it's league night or it's tournament, because you don't have that opportunity to try again or to, it's kind of just a casual round. It definitely does improve your game.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Well, hey, that's going to wrap it up for today's episode. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you hit the subscribe button if you want to get better at disc golf. The Chain Clankers is the #1 place to do that. Listen on your way in order to be getting better. We've got a super fun episode with Robbie C. Disc Golf coming up next week, so make sure you stay tuned for that. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button. We've got new videos dropping every Wednesday and the podcast dropping on Monday, so YouTube is really the spot to go to right now. And yeah, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you guys next week.